Brian Keane, it is an absolute honor to have you on the Modern Warrior podcast.
Absolute pleasure. Gavin, really looking forward to chatting. I say that now, but I've not listened to podcasts. I shouldn't be as excited as I am, but mate, looking forward to going deep. You're doing tremendous work, so really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, likewise, man. And you are known to many as Brian Keane Fitness, but today I want to remove that word fitness and get to know Brian Keane, and understanding that the fitness is only a small part of who you are, and there's so much more to you than that, as you know. And I'm looking forward to exploring some of these other parts of you that perhaps you haven't been as vocal or open about because you haven't had the opportunity perhaps to do so. And here is the door opener for you to step through and open up about some of these underlying struggles, pains, difficulties, experiences you've gone through in order for you to become this incredible man as you are today. So looking forward to this.
Yeah, let's crack the door open and
Deep
see
dive.
what comes up.
Yeah. When I mentioned deep dive, if we were to go into the depths of who you are, what would we find there in terms of your childhood, your past experiences that you believe formed your identity, that maybe at some point you realized no longer served you? What were those core foundational principles that you believe created the man you became, that perhaps has changed the man you are today as well, as you go through the process of rewriting your own story?
It's a great question. And it's very interesting because one of my personal mantras when I meditate is, who are you before they told you who to be? It's something I come back to quite a lot. And unpacking the narratives and the stories and the beliefs, because we're just a collective. Our identity is a collection of our stories, our beliefs, our experiences, our biases, culturally, the way we were raised, and it forms this version of an identity. For me, it's Brian Keane and Brian Keane Fitness. I've had two identities I talk about in the new book, Rewriting Your Story, that I got them very muddled at one point, because Brian Keane is one person, Brian Keane Fitness, the online personality, is another. And when you have this split personality, without going into multiple personality disorder, you've got this mild version of it that makes you question, who am I really? And something that started to unpack for me in my early 30s, I'm 38 at the end of this year, but in my early 30s, I started to go deeper and ask better questions. You know this from the content you put out. We're an accumulation of the thoughts we have, but also the questions we ask ourselves. And my daughter was born in 2015 when I was 27. And at that time, I was competing as a competitive bodybuilder. I was traveling around as a fitness model. I was started and had a successful fitness business at the time. And everything in my life was geared towards what I thought success looked like to me. It was the money, the status, the body, the attractive girlfriend, the house, the traditional, if we don't question the story and the narrative of the culture that we're in the west of Ireland, or in Ireland, or the west of the world particularly, I started following that path. And then Holly was born in May 2015, and I got a little bit of a wake-up call during this period. I was massively burnt out and overwhelmed. And in 2015, I was preparing for the Worlds in Vegas for the Fitness Model World Championships. So competitive bodybuilding shows, like super calorie restricted, lots of drugs, lots of fat burners, lots of self-loathing to drive the training sessions. And I remember going up into my house, or right before I was to go up into my house after driving home from, I think it was 9 back-to-back PTs in the gym. And I just burst out crying. And I had no idea why. I was just in the car crying to the steering wheel because I was so anxious about everything. I was worried about what kind of dad I would be. I was worried about finances. Would I be able to provide? I was worried about what would happen if everything blows up at this show that I'm prepping for, and then I lose all my clients, and catastrophizing. It's anxiety 101, where you end up just creating these worst case scenarios and then living in those temporarily. And it was just too much for me at the time. And I did the Worlds in Vegas in August, a couple of months after Holly was born. And I decided that was it. I'm out of this world. I don't know what the next step looks like, but I can't keep doing this. I can't keep running myself into the ground, burning out, not checking in with any of the emotions that were coming up. That was an isolated experience, Gavin, where I burst out crying, and I hadn't cried since I was a kid. I'm not a crier generally up until that point. And now with nearly 38, I know that crying is just an emotional release, and it comes up in different shapes and forms. For a minute, it could be anger. I've experienced that extreme anger where you've just pent up the emotion. It can be tears. I've had several psychedelic experiences with ayahuasca particularly, where my purge was crying because I had done a decade of not crying. So that was my purge. I didn't get sick, but I bawled and couldn't stop for long periods of time. And I said I was going to get out of that world. And then by proxy, because my identity at the time was I'm the fitness guy. This is what I do. I'm competing in bodybuilding shows and fitness model shows. I'm traveling around the world and I'm in shape and I've got a six pack and I've got muscles and, I've got all these other things. And then that got pulled and I had to ask, okay, well, who do I want to be now? And I realized that my values were completely muddled. I put up a post on Instagram yesterday. One of the best lessons I ever got. I got it from a professor when I was studying to be a primary school teacher in London. And I was asking, it was one of our math lectures, and I asked him about math. I was like, what? I was like, I'm not really good at math. What do I need to know about school? And the line he gave me was, the most important math you'll ever learn is what's the future cost of your current decisions. And it blindsided me because it wasn't what I was looking for. I was like, tell me the fractions answer. Like compound fractions freak me out. Tell me how to do those. But that is something I still come back to 15 years later, 17 years later. What's the future cost of my current decisions? And in 2015, when Holly was born, I wasn't going to be a good dad. And I was very worried because we know each other in a past life in college. Mm-hmm. Very different person. I had a lot of core wounds. I had definitely womanizing tendencies. I didn't respect women, apart from my mum and my sister. And I was terrified that my daughter would grow up like some of the women that I was hooking up with. And what I didn't know then was my vibration and my frequency and my issues and my core wounds were attracting people who had similar issues. And I've said this on a previous podcast, I can't remember which one, and it's fucking true. If you put 100 women in a room and 3 of them had dad issues, I could tell you which 3 because it'd be the 3 I was attracted to. It was like a fucking pull, a vibrational pull. And I had no awareness around this. And I spent a lot of the last 5-6 years trying to clear some of the, not even karmic damage, genuine unawareness damage that I caused some of the women that I was with in my life, just from being blind, emotionally blind to what I was doing, how I was showing up on autopilot. And, all the mistakes I made and perceived failures were down to the fact that I was terrified my daughter would grow up like some of the women that I was spending time with. And I never had that mirror shine back on me. And I remember one of my best friends, Paul Dermody, said it to me because I was telling him how I was really worried. I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, what do I do if Holly turns out to be a really low vibration, low self-esteem,
that attracts a man like
that
me.
attracts a man like me? That was fucking terrifying to me. And I remember he said to me, which is actually really helpful at the time, he goes, the fact you're asking that question tells me it's probably not going to happen. He goes, this tends to not happen intentionally. But with that question made me think, okay, what kind of man would I want my daughter to end up with? And that's what led to the work over the last 10 years or so, is I'm always going to be her anchor point for how a man should be. Every girl's first love is generally their dad, unless something tragically happens. And I know how I am with my girlfriend, how I am with my mother, how I am as a person. is what she's going to expect a man to treat her. And that's kind of a long-winded way of what led me to this work and led me to unpack the identity of who Brian Keane was then and who I wanted him to be. I didn't understand in my 20s that you can decide who you want to be, and then you can consume information, you can remove blocks, you can let go of the shit that's not serving you any longer. It's not easy. It's actually really difficult, but you can do it. Other people have, and they're reference points and inspiration for when you're struggling and it gets difficult. You do this with the modern warriors, with the men you're working with. They're holding on to the shit that they know would be better if they let it go, but they can't. But the fact that other people have let it go is really encouraging. And I found great relief and healing in some of my abuse, emotional, sexual as a child, when I would see other men who had come out the other side, who were mirrors, or I won't say idyllic versions, because you shouldn't put anybody on a pedestal. But at the time, it helped me because I could block things out emotionally. I could block out sadness. I could block out anger. I could block all these things out, and then I could go channel them into training. And I could compete a leg day that would make every person that I've ever met spew repeatedly. I could run 100-mile ultramarathons. I could run through the deserts and the Arctic, and I had fuel for that. I had fuel. I had anger, and I was able to channel it. And it led to a lot of external achievements and success. And ironically, when I let that go, the urge and the pull for these extreme things went with it. And I like to challenge myself more than anybody. I do high rocks races. I like running fast 5Ks. I like doing CrossFit workouts. I like to challenge myself physically. I'm a fitness guy at the end of the day. I love that part of me, that element and that section of my identity. But the nearly flagellation of physically putting yourself to the ringer because of a self-esteem or a lack of self-love went away when I started to heal a lot of this. And then everything started to shift around me. It's so true. You can only control yourself, but when you start to heal, you end up giving others around you permission to heal. When you start to allow yourself to shine brighter or allow yourself to vibrate at a higher frequency, you also either allow others to do the same or you attract others who are at the same. It's not a coincidence we're having this conversation in 2025, not 2017, because this conversation doesn't happen. I haven't a clue what you're talking about. All the stuff that I love with your message now that connects deeply to me goes right over my head in 2016, 2017. So again, very long-winded way, but that's the identity and kind of part of the way that I got to this path.
Beautiful answer. And at the core, realizing that pain is an incredible performance enhancer, isn't it? And there is so much resemblance in your story to my own. I was that guy in the college as well. Alcoholic, perhaps, but certainly a very destructive approach to alcohol during those years in Sligo IT at the time. Blind drunk every opportunity that I had, waking up blackouts, never questioning it, just going along with it. An absolute numbing agent for the underlying pain that I was not yet ready to heal. And that went on. And then there was the women, there was the lack of respect, there was the actual underlying incredible rage and anger that I had towards women, which was my own mother wound from the past that I hadn't even realized at the time. So this complete ignorance and bliss that comes with the ignorance, because when you're in that place, you're so oblivious to the pain and indulging in the pleasures. But the realization is that pain and the hurt is necessary for the growth and the healing and the progress. And until you're ready to go towards the pain, you're not ready to heal, but at least heal those parts of you. And my daughter was born in 2010, and that changed everything for me as well. I was 26, and it's amazing how for both of us, the birth of this incredible human almost inspired us to become born again as well into a new identity, or at least to begin to question our identities. But as you go back to the past, have you pinpointed an experience or a time where you felt like you lost that identity and then began to search or find it in these places where you would seek validation, praise, and attention from others? And validation, praise, and attention is a sense of love that you didn't have for yourself. But of course, it comes from the outside in, instead of realizing that it's already there, that the answers are within, not out here. And you've learned this over the experiences of chasing it and realizing that it can't be found. But as you go back, is there an experience or a time there where you felt like you lost it, or you lost touch with it, perhaps?
It wasn't that I lost touch with it directly, but there was a host of experiences that molded me, and we have ripples of an echo in a similar story, but slightly different. For me, it was a father wound. My mum, and everyone has a small bit of a mother wound, small bit of a father wound. Like, there's no avoiding this. No one gets out of childhood unscathed in some shape or form. But mine was a father wound. I had a terrible relationship with my father. I hated my father for years. And it's now done a complete 180. I love my dad. And I consider him a teacher, a mentor, somebody I still go to for advice. A combination of Holly being born shifted that, because it gives you a different perspective when you're a parent as well. And also, she really softened him. And I remember on one of my ayahuasca trips, one of the messages I got from the ayahuasca was, the way your dad is with her is how he wished he was with you. And there's generational trauma, Irish men. And I had to let go and forgive that it wasn't, and I didn't know this until my 30s, how my dad was with me wasn't a representation of me. It was a representation of his unhealed wounds. And I didn't know that. I had no awareness around this. I just assumed it was me. I assumed I was the problem. That's what we do. And so my validation came from, and I see it now, so much of it was like, just fucking see me. Like, I just want to be seen. Like, it's not a coincidence I've got following on social media and I fucking talk for Ireland and all these things that are very external and visual. I was like, I just wanted to be fucking seen. And I didn't know any of this because this is all going on autopilot. It's all subconscious. And when I look back, it was because that self-love that you mentioned, that I mentioned as well, I didn't have that because I was just trying to get father's approval, love from dad. And I had it from my mum, but it's different. It's different. Like, I had an aversion to male teachers until my 20s. Now I've got several male teachers. You're one of them in terms of when I consume the content and take on the message. Jerry Hussey, I'm a big fan of as well, someone I consider a mentor. I was averse to male teachers because I was like, fuck men. I don't need a fucking man. I'm fine. That was my language. That was a core father wound verbalizing itself in I don't need them. I had no awareness around this. None. And it wasn't until one of my friends, who was a couple of years older than me, said it. He was like, why don't you listen to men? I was like, what do you mean, why don't I listen to men? I was like, I read books and I listen to podcasts. What do you mean? He goes, no. I'm not talking about that. I was like, the emotional stuff. Why won't you listen to men? You'll go to a therapist and you'll listen to a woman, but you won't listen to a man. And I remember I was in a place to hear that during that time, because I was like, I don't know, Dan. I was like, I don't know. And then, as if the dust started to clear, I was like, oh shit. I was like, I didn't even know I was doing this. And then I, for the first time, understood that I had a core wound, a father wound that I needed to heal. I didn't know how, but the first step towards change is awareness. You can't change a behavior or a viewpoint or an identity without awareness around it first. And I started to unpack that. And when I went deeper, I realized there was a lot of resentment there, a lot of hate towards him, but also towards me, because it always mirrored back to me. I always felt like I wasn't enough. So that not being enough represents itself in that lack of self-love. You generally get to most people who struggle with self-love, there's a I'm not enough story there somewhere in some capacity. Again, focus group of one, but I've seen it enough over the years. And when I started to work on that and just change the language with myself, that I am enough, I am worthy of love. That was a big one for me. Like, I went through a really bad breakup a few years ago. Fucking rocked me to my core. A girl that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. We were engaged, we were planning to get married. I thought that was my person. And what I didn't know at the time, why the breakup hit me so hard, was because I felt love from her. And when we broke up, I thought that love was gone forever, that I was never going to get that again. I was like, I found the one person in this world who loves me. Fuck, they're gone now. And that was an amazing lesson and a gift 3 years later when you come out the other side. Because what that person was, and that relationship dynamic didn't work. Great person. We don't speak now, but she will make someone very happy. And I send positive vibes her way when I get a chance, even though I haven't seen her in a year and a half, 2 years maybe. But the lesson and the gift I got from that was, fuck, I can't get that from somebody else. That can't be someone else's job. But it rocked me because that feeling of love that you can potentially give yourself when it's coming externally from somebody else will rock you when it's taken away. And what it allowed me to do was it started to bring up all these guilt and shame spirals. For me, my ex-girlfriend at the time, or my ex-fiancée at the time, was the first person I ever told about my sexual abuse. First person I ever spoke to about. First female. My friend Dan knew. First one I ever spoke about. And I remember thinking, I'll never forget it to this day. We're about a year and a half going out, and a conversation came up and I shared it with her. And I remember thinking there and then, Gavin, she's going to leave now. I'm going to tell her this thing, this fucking shame that feels like a monster in me. And she's going to walk out that door and I'm never going to see her again. She's going to look at me in disgust. That's such a broken fucking thought process. But the problem is, when you're in it, it's normal to you. And if you repeat that story enough, that becomes what is as close to a fact in your brain. And what happened was she didn't leave. And she stayed and she hugged me. And I fucking bawled my eyes out crying. And I thought, okay, this is my person. And I remember when we broke up, I was like, I'm never going to be able to share it with anyone again. I was like, I'm never going to be able to say that to anybody again. And no one's ever going to. So I thought love had walked out the door several years later when we broke up. And that's not what happened. What ended up happening as a super gift was I need to fucking work on this. To the point that I can speak about it now on a public podcast. And it's not going to resonate with everyone because not everyone's been through similar experiences, but everyone's going through something. Everyone has their version of the story that's limiting them and holding them back. And for me, that experience and having to unpack that gift, Carl Jung, that famous line, that what you most need is where you least want to look. And when we broke up, I had to soul search. I had to figure out, who am I? Why am I here? Why do I feel like this? And several years later, years of therapy, working with shamans, psychedelic experiences, breathwork, journaling, all the modalities, I've experimented with them, and it brings you to a level of healing where you can speak about it. And you learn to forgive not only the perpetrator, because nobody should have to experience anything like that, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, particularly not a child. But you learn to forgive yourself and not fall into the shame spiral and the guilt spiral. And if you don't attack that head on, I had David Kessler on my podcast, one of the world's leading experts in grief. And he speaks about grief and the buffaloes. Are you familiar with buffaloes in a storm?
Yes.
In a storm, the buffalo moves towards the storm so that they're in it and it's more intense in the beginning, but they're out of it sooner. That's kind of like what grief is, whether it's grief of a breakup, grief of a childhood experience, grief of a version of you need to let go of. Grief shows up in lots of different shapes and forms. And courage and strength are two anchors for me when I was moving through that, because it was hard. This was shit I'd bottled up for years and just did not want to talk about. And if you brought it up, it got shut back down. And I would remove myself from any conversations where similar topics were being discussed, or I would mentally disconnect because I didn't want to go there. And you just can't go to a place you're not ready to go to. You know, this is a massive part of your work. because I was able to go there, you come out a different version. You come out stronger. You come out kind of backing yourself more, that you'll have the courage and strength, because you don't know what life's going to throw at you. Life will throw curveballs. Life will throw situations that are difficult. And it's not about avoiding the difficult situations or the curveball. It's about knowing that you can back yourself and have the tools emotionally, physically, mentally to deal with the problem when it comes, whatever that looks like. And that was a lot of the work over the last few years. And in terms of childhood, it was working through a lot of those stories, a combination of father wounds, combination of abuse, and the unsupportive narratives that led me to become a 27-year-old man who had everything on the outside: good shape, money, attractive partner, house, finances, all these things. And I was fucking miserable. I was miserable because I was misaligned with what I was supposed to be doing. And I was disguising the hurt and pain and trying to transfer it into something else. And it still took several years after to do that. And for me, the breakup was the next pivotal part in my life, because I was in a point where I was ready to heal. I was in a point where I'm like, I'm ready to move through this. I don't know how. And sometimes you're not going to know how. You know this with the men you work with. You're not going to know how. Maybe it's not your job to know how. Maybe it's not the correct time, because when you know how, that's when you were supposed to know how. That's the spiritual letting go, trusting and surrendering. That just because you don't have the information now means you're not supposed to have it now. And that's okay. And trusting and surrendering that you will get the information when you're supposed to have it, and you'll heal when you're supposed to heal. Letting go of that, trusting and surrendering to that, is a very, very powerful approach, in my opinion.
It usually takes a breakup or a breakdown before we make that move, isn't it? I mean, if you look at your relationship, it wasn't a breakup, but it was what the breakup exposed within you, such as, in my own experience, different circumstance where I was heavily addicted to porn for many, many years. Again, something I felt very ashamed about, something I kept secret. And my porn addiction was to the extent where I was in these webcam chat rooms. The entertainer, again, praise, validation, attention, feelings of love and appreciation and acceptance that I could not access within myself, finding on the outside. And that was an incredible drug in itself. And 2 years later, a friend calls me up and says, Gavin, there's a video of you on a porn site here. Seems like you're in a webcam chat room masturbating, and it's been circulated around the area. Just I need you to know that. And boom, whole world came crashing down. And that was the fucking wake up call. You mentioned the wake up call. When your daughter was born, we've had several wake up calls. Another wake up call when you had the breakup. That was my wake up call to change my direction, instead of going out here, to start going within and begin to ask the questions in terms of, how the fuck did I get here? It was the very question I asked myself the day after that happened. Drove out to the beach, sitting in the car, and I just sat there and I asked myself that fucking question. How the fuck did I get here? And then I started to trace back the steps, going back to childhood, understanding the energy of the people that were around me when I was a child, the anxiety, the fears, the shame, how I absorbed all that, and how it created this version of me that I was fucking disgusted with, which is why I kept it secret until it's exposed. And you go, okay, here's my opportunity now to either be used by this pain and play the victim for the rest of my life, run away and try to escape it on some level, or else I can use this pain, I can use this experience in order to help others who are going through similar struggles. And that was where the whole direction of working with men on a deeper level happened for me. So again, I hear where you're at, and it takes incredible courage to go there. And I believe that's the realization that we take from these experiences, is knowing how fucking courageous and strong we actually are, and how that in itself inspires others to step up, to be strong and courageous, to face their own demons, to face their own pain. And as we do this as a collective species or as collective men, and it's a powerful force that we create in the world and the universe, because it's not only the impact of making those changes within ourselves, it's how that impacts the people in our lives and how that impacts the people in their lives, and on it goes, like this ripple effect. And you've had your struggles in the past, and alcohol, porn, these addictions, these crutches, these numbing agents. And when you look back at that, where was the moment, or was an accumulation of moments, or was it a moment where you turned around and said, okay, this needs to fucking stop now?
Yeah. I studied a lot of Carl Jung because Jung speaks very heavily to me as a philosopher. And to requote him, that until you make the subconscious conscious, it will guide your life and you'll call it fate, became a little bit of a brain tattoo for me. That the stuff that I wasn't happy with, the alcohol, the porn, and it's weird because men have similar draws, similar energies. There's a very good book by David Tadea, The Way of the Superior Man.
Oh, brilliant book, yeah.
Great book, one I go back on regularly, and understanding the energies of why we get pulled. From a practical sense, I think I knew that it's the same. Like, I'm a fitness guy. We have a fitness background, so we know that, you know, McDonald's and Burger King is food, but it's not nourishment. Porn is physical, visual, but it's not attachment or connection. And
it's like indulging yourself whilst at the same time starving yourself.
Yeah, it is. It's like it's constantly eating without ever getting full, and just feeling shit because you're still getting all the byproduct of having to digest the food, etc. Porn is like a metaphorical equivalent of that. And the problem is you can feed that monster, feed that beast, especially if you're quite a highly testosterone driven man. And that's a superpower, also a super curse. I remember when I was in my 20s, I would envy men in their 70s and 80s who didn't have that sexual pull or desire anymore. I was like, I can't wait to get to that point. which is mental because of all the bad decisions I was making, where I would be just pulled like a vibrational pull. And the problem was, because there's amazing women out there, and some of them I've met over the years and was with over the years. It wasn't all women with dad issues, and I've met some incredible teachers, and one of my ex-girlfriends from London is still one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She's an incredible human being. And there are people out there that will show you different versions. Just because it's your reality doesn't mean it's the reality. That's the false consensus bias at its finest. Just because you think a certain way isn't the way the world is, or isn't the way that everyone else thinks. And when it came to things like porn and alcohol, understanding when they had stopped supporting me, or that wasn't the right correct
serving you.
I thought they were serving me. That was the problem. The problem was I thought they were serving me because my story around alcohol was, and we were in college together. I used alcohol not to get blinding drunk. I used alcohol so that my standards could lower enough to make sure I went home with somebody. That's what I used alcohol for. No offense to the girls that are listening now. Some of you are incredible, and if you think it's you, it's not you. It's definitely someone else. But that was it. Like that was what I used alcohol for, because my self-worth and also looking for a validation. I got very validated when a girl would bring me home, or I'd bring a girl home. I got very, very validated temporarily by that, and it didn't matter who they were, as long as someone did, because I'm like, well, this person is showing me they clearly want me. I'm lovable. That was and this is just repeat over and over again, like eating McDonald's every day, expecting to get nourished. And that was my relationship to hookups. And porn is similar because it's all that. And for me, this is going to sound so fucked up, Gav. My story was, well, I'll go to porn because at least I'm not going to hurt anybody if I use porn. This is a victimless crime. I was like, if I'm hooking up with random girls, some of them I was starting to hurt, and I'm starting to feel bad about it because I wasn't being a dick on purpose, and I was very intentional about what things were, probably to a fault. But that sometimes, again, you're the hero in someone's story, the villain in someone else's. You tell someone, look, I only want to have sex, and I'll only have sex with you when I'm on a night out. Are you cool with that? These are conversations I had. And some were like, yeah, perfect. Some were like, no, fuck you. Like, my self-worth is more than that. And others were like, okay. And then would massively badmouth you, but like, he's a prick. So it was the same circumstance, but the experience was different. But that was starting to happen on repeat. And I felt really bad because like no one wants to hurt anybody intentionally, I don't think.
Well,
So
you're hurting yourself. At the end of the day. I mean, you're protecting yourself from that, aren't you? The shame that you feel for hurting someone else.
And that was it. And porn was my introduction to that because I'm like, okay, I can just use porn. This is fine. I was like, I'm not hurting anybody, but you're hurting yourself. But that was my story. So at the time, it felt serving. Same as alcohol felt serving because it was leading to a temporary validation fill. When I got really clear that those two things were stories I had woven to avoid a discomfort of not feeling validated or loved or not feeling a shame spiral, because porn's a weird one because porn sends you into the shame spiral, especially if you said you're not going to do it and then you did it. That's the problem. Same as any addict will tell you anything similar, that it's the shame that kills you, not the fucking drug itself. And I had to get clearer with that. Alcohol was a lot easier for me to give up, personally, because the problem was when I started to get into really good shape, I didn't need the alcohol anymore, which sounds really bad. And also then Tinder came along. So like, in terms of like technological change, I was like, I don't need to drink alcohol. I can just match a lot of people on Tinder and then potentially hook up with these. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And so alcohol was easier to cut for me. Porn was a little bit trickier. And I temporarily gave up porn. I don't use it now, but I temporarily gave it up even in my late 20s because I was like, my story at the time was, if I'm hooking up with somebody, I'm going to lay it all on the table and be like, look, if you're not into this, that's okay. But this is where I'm at. I'm building a business. I'm preparing for a show. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. If you're interested in a casual thing where we have sex a couple of times a week, amazing. If you're not, totally cool. Totally fine. Even looking back now, that's fucking madness, even having that conversation. Because for me, it was, this is my terms, not realizing that there's an other human being on the other side of this conversation who you might be triggering, you might be activating, you might be putting their core wounds, you might be affecting them, and maybe you're not doing anything.
But at least you're being honest about it. I mean, so many men do this and set certain intentions vocally with the woman, but deep down there are other intentions in terms of, I'll tell this woman what I believe she wants to hear, so she'll get into bed with me, have sex with me, but I'm not really that interested in getting into a relationship with her or going deeper into connection with her. I just want sex, but I have to convince her that I am worthy enough for her to go through this process with me. So, but at least
I didn't do that. Mean, yeah, that wasn't my path.
Yeah, but I mean, to a certain extent, at least you were being honest with these women and saying, look, because at the end of the day, you're giving them a choice, aren't you? I mean, you don't have to do this, but this is where I'm at, and this is.
I'll never forget. Sorry to cut across.
That's all right. No, it's good.
There's a girl. Oh God bless her soul. I can't remember the year, 2017, 2018. It was around the time the first book came out, The Fitness Mindset. And I was really busy during this period of time. I'd scaled my programs up and I started seeing this girl from the gym I was training at the time. And I remember I said to her up front, literally day one, I was like, I am really busy. I was like, these are the things I'm doing. I was like, I do not have time for a relationship. I'm happy to do the date stuff with you. I'll go to the cinema, we'll go for dinner, we'll have sex, but it ends there. If you're not cool with this, we don't have to enter it into it all. She was like, oh, that's perfect. I remember 2 months later, she had the conversation with me. She's like, where is this going? And I was like, I told you exactly where this was going. And I'll never forget it because I had this conversation with Natalie Lennon when I was in here in Primal as well. And she said, I thought I'd change your mind. And that was the last time I had one of those relationships because she was really hurt. She was really hurt. And not mad at me. She wasn't angry at me, but she was really hurt and I could tell. And I was like, fuck it, I can't do this anymore.
She thought she could change.
She thought you, and that was her exact words. She was like, I thought I could change your mind. I was like, I told you exactly what this was. And I was like, you're great. I like hanging out with you, but I am not interested in a relationship. I'm not interested in building anything with you.
That's the risk you run, though, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, but that was the last one. I remember the year after I did Marathon des Sables, which was the 6 back-to-back marathons in the Sahara. And on day 4, it's a double marathon. So it's 86K and you've got 24 hours to do it. And I remember on that marathon at hour 19 or 20, I was running for 24 hours straight. At about hour 19 or 20, I remember thinking, what the fuck am I doing in relationships? I was like, it was a metaphor for my life. I was like, I'm in the middle of the desert and I'm at least running in the right direction towards the camp. Why the fuck would I run left or right here? And I'm like, I'm doing this in relationships. And that was a real aha moment for me. I came back from the Sahara and I didn't go into any relationship after that unless there was a filter of, is this somebody that I actually want to spend time with? And I'm going to sound like an absolute cunt when I say this, but my filter changed. I shouldn't say this on public podcasts, so bear with me. My filter changed from, I'm not going to have sex with anyone I don't like, which sounds mental. I told this to my girlfriend now during this period of my life, because my filter was, I will have sex with anyone I'm attracted to. And there's a big difference between I'll have sex with somebody I'm attracted to and I'll have sex with somebody I like. That went from hundreds, maybe thousands, to 2, 3, 4, maybe people. But that was a big wake up for me. That was a big change in filtering process for me. And the girl that I mentioned earlier, my ex-girlfriend from London, had a line. I remember when we broke up, because we weren't each other's person, but she was one of my best friends. She's still an amazing, amazing individual. But she gave me the line when we broke up, because I moved back from London to Ireland. And she's like, well, I suppose when we both stop chasing the wrong thing, we'll give the right thing an opportunity to catch up. And I never forgot that line. Never forgot it. And that's what happens in all areas: career, relationships, fitness, health, doesn't matter. It's all across the board. If you stop chasing the wrong things, alcohol, validation, porn, the wrong relationships, the hookups, if you can trust and surrender, you're potentially giving the right things an opportunity to catch up.
What does trust and surrender look like for you? I mean, I get it, but there are people listening to this who don't understand it. And the power of it.
One of my best friends, Orla, has been on my podcast a few times. She calls me a Trojan horse. I think we're both Trojan horses because we're both very bro. Like, we lift weights, we train, we work out. And if you don't hear us speak, you just assume we're very bro, because we both have a background in fitness and, you know, we look after ourselves and things like that. But underneath it, there's a spirituality, or at minimum, an emotional strength that manifests itself in softness, because you can't be tough and hard in every situation.
The masculine and the feminine energy.
It's huge. That's massive. And also that you can't always give yourself the feminine energy. It has to come externally from someone else, and you have to let it in and trust that intuition or that experience or conversation and that perspective from that feminine side and that divine feminine or healed feminine. That's massive. Like, you would read out a list of wounded masculine or toxic masculinity. It not in the 2025, he said this, they said that, the fucking trendy version of it now, the legit spiritual of lack of self-love, jealousy, anger, unchanneled anger, all these lists of toxic or unhealed masculine. I had all of them. I would go through that list. I was nearly a walking stereotype box of that. But like everything, and I'm very visual, when I could see a list of healed masculine, I'm like, okay, well, these are the targets. I want to be able to hold space for the women in life and men in my life. I want to be able to not be judgmental. I want to be able to attract the things that are important to me, all these areas. And when it came to that kind of Trojan horse and trust and surrender, I'm very, very spiritual, meaning that for someone that's very type A and gets a lot of shit done, so do you. You run retreats, write books, create content. I do the same and insert X, Y, or Z thing here. But ultimately, the trust and surrender knows that there's a greater power or a higher version of something, a universal plan, a God, big G plan. And I'm not talking religion, I'm talking spirituality. There's a trust in that every conversation, I have, this one included, I'm supposed to have today. Every single encounter, good or bad, and good or bad is just my interpretation of the event, I'm supposed to have today. And when I trust that that's how life is, and I surrender that exactly what's meant to be happens at all times, forcing it is a waste of time for me. And in the past, I've forced things to happen. And I've used language of force good things to happen, which is such a disconnect from what I now believe is going on universally around me. And all that allows me to do personally, focus group of one, is move through the world in a lot more peaceful way. I struggle a lot with anxiety. I struggle a lot with depression. I struggle a lot with self-worth, self-love, all the things we've talked about. And a lot of that was just too much ego attachment of Brian Keane's problems. And I had to go from 0 to 1 with a very logical and rational brain. The experiments and thought experiments, if I put my problems in a list with all the other people in the world, I wouldn't be long taking my ones back. That got me from 0 to 1. But then as I started to progress, I started to realize my problems weren't real problems at all, for the most part. They were self-inflicted. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating well. I'm not training. I'm not moving my body. I'm physically not looking after myself, and now I feel rubbish. Comes back to the nourishment of the food, the porn, etc. That was a foundation. I'm a health and fitness person, so that was a very obvious thing for me. What wasn't really obvious was the spirituality side, meditating, breath work, connecting in with your values, connecting in with making peace with the uncomfortable emotions that you're not willing to look at and face. And there's a book, Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, Invite Mara to Tea. I had to learn to invite the shame, the guilt, the anger to tea, to make friends with them, that they're not monsters under the bed that I need to be scared of and avoid. They're parts of me that are trying to show me something. They're trying to tell me where the path is for healing. They're trying to tell me who I should be avoiding, what I should be avoiding, what's misaligned for me. They're vehicles, and I know it's nearly anthropomorphization at its finest, but you're visualizing these people helping you. Their emotions. I love the movie Inside Out, the Pixar movie, with the anger and sadness and joy. That's really helpful. I do a very similar thing with those negative emotions that are very familiar to me. Shame and guilt, fucking hell. They've been with me for a long period of time, but for so long I was pushing them under the bed instead of just trying to see what they were trying to teach me. Once that shifted, and once I trusted that they had a message for me, and that the uncomfortable feelings I had, pain is the path to freedom. Whatever freedom looks like for you. And courage and strength are part of the recipe so that you can tap into that pain so that you can have the freedom. I tried to avoid it. What working out in the gym taught me was you tear yourself down to make yourself stronger. Tuning into your emotions is the emotional equivalent of that. You tune into the pain, you check in with the pain, and that's how you grow. That's how you get better. Having a fitness background allowed me to use a bridge to get there. Everyone's will be different. And then ultimately surrendering to whatever message it is that comes up, and know that if I put a bad, quote unquote, bad label on it, that's me projecting an expectation of how I should be or how I should see a situation. Nothing's good or bad. It's the way you're thinking about it that's determining it. And yeah, someone will cut you off in traffic and you'll get pissed off. Someone will be really rude and you'll get annoyed. That's life. But it's that Viktor Frankl, between impulse and response, there's a gap in between. And you're just trying to respond to things instead of react. And the more awareness you bring, meditation was huge for me. Meditation allowed me to disconnect from what Brian Keane was thinking to this observer of my thoughts. And when I was able to draw that disconnection between the observer of my thoughts and that I'm an external thing over here looking in on it increased that gap between reacting. And that, over the last few years, combined with trusting and surrendering that there's a universal plan for me and potentially for everybody. I don't want to put my beliefs onto other people. That's not my role. But for me personally, which is a truth and an authentic truth for me, is that there's a spiritual plan. There's a universal plan. And trusting and surrendering gives me a lot of peace when I'm able to tune into that.
I'm right there with you. I don't believe we hold the script. We are, in my belief, the door in which the doing occurs. So surrender to the process because we are not in control. And the opposite of surrendering is trying and is pushing and is forcing. And if you do not surrender, you continue to suffer. Again, at least in my opinion. And I'm right there with you at the moment, as I said, in terms of understanding that to be is to feel is to heal. And you need to feel the pain in order to heal the pain. So this is my opportunity, your opportunity as well, I'm sure, every single day to be with the underlying pain, insecurity, you call it what you want, shame, envy, guilt, and look at it from a place of curiosity more so than a place of judgment or shame. Like that thing you said, oh, this is bad, this is good. Well, you're applying a certain judgment to this situation or this emotion, this feeling. And because you apply judgment, you most likely feel ashamed or you reject it in some ways. Oh, no, I don't want that. That doesn't feel good. Let me do something that does feel good, like distract myself with the phone or with drink or porn or women or work or something else. Again, always running away from ourselves. Being with ourselves is our opportunity to understand ourselves more, bring awareness to where we're at, and therefore allow for the answers to come up to inspire us to take the next action forward in our lives instead of reaction forward. I need to do this. I should be doing that. Where's this coming from? Ego? Stories from the past? Trying to impress mom and dad again? So it's not your truth, that's someone else's truth, that's someone else's life that you're living. So that's so important.
Can I just add one thing to that? You have a beautiful point there, and just I don't want it to get missed for anyone that's listening. Surrendering doesn't mean not taking action. There's a big difference. Surrendering means that you're allowing the path to become clear so you can walk it. And it's not about sitting on the top of a mountain, meditating and trusting and surrendering to the universe. That's not the life I want to live. I want to do and have these conversations. I want to be a partner for my other half. I want to be a father and the man I think I can be for my daughter. I want to show up in the world from a place of service. Surrendering just means that you remove the anxiety and that you don't force the things that don't feel aligned for you. It's nearly like the intuition, and I had to get very good at tuning into intuition because it wasn't a good default for me. Intuitively, when you're operating consciously on core wounds, that will dictate a lot of your behavior. And until you get to the root of the core wound, for me, a lot of those behaviors weren't serving. But once I was able to heal and work through that, I feel it to heal it, like you said, the surrendering became easier, and then the actions I had to take became clearer. The books to write, the people to work with, the people to spend time with. When I met my other half, my current girlfriend now, I wasn't looking for a girlfriend. I met this person and I was like, oh my God, this person is wonderful. Like, I was like, all I know is, I don't know where this is going. All I know is I want to be around her more. I was like, her energy and vibration, she's one of the kindest people I've ever met. One of the most thoughtful people I've ever met. Somebody that I don't think I could have attracted unless I had done the work. It just wouldn't have connected. The vibration would have been completely different. But you also have to take action when the opportunity presents itself. I didn't surrender and be like, okay, we'll just see what happens here. I'm like, let's go on the date. Let's pursue this and see what happens. So I just want to make sure people don't confuse trusting and surrendering with not taking action.
Because you surrendered, you allowed space for her to come into your life, though.
Yeah.
You open yourself up to a higher vibration and of course, inviting someone in at that vibration as well.
Everything's like that. It's not just romantic relationships. That's your friends, the people I work with. Every person I'm working with right now, particularly in the one-to-one, are all people I would work with for free. Because your vibe attracts your tribe. It's a cliche in business, but it's very true. And that is very nourishing and energy giving, because when you're feeling nourished and energized because you're working with the right people, and not everyone has this We've been doing it a long time. It's easier for us now, and we'll attract people that are a better fit for us. But that, for me, crosses over outside of romantic relationships. So I think that's an important distinguishment to make, because not everyone will be in a place where they want a relationship. Maybe they're out the back of a bad one and it's the last thing on their mind and they need to do the healing. But it doesn't mean that vibration shift and increase in frequency won't show up in other areas outside of just romantic.
For your life is nothing more than your beliefs, your thoughts projected outwards. And if you are experiencing a life of dissatisfaction or lack, then it's reflecting back to you what you lack or what you don't believe about yourself that can be changed from the inside out versus the outside in, which is the journey we've been on in terms of build the business, get the money, get the car, get the women, and then realize, oh fuck, I'm still fucked. That's not the answer. So the answer must be in here instead of chasing it out there. And I believe we do need, most of us at least, have to go through the process of finding this out the hard way, at least for a lot of men. And it's okay. Wherever you are on your journey at the moment is exactly where you need to be. So don't be taking this conversation on board and thinking, oh, fuck, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. No, now you're, again, shaming yourself. It's okay. Where you are right now is where you need to be. If you're suffering, allow the suffering, because to allow it is to give it opportunity to learn from it and to pass. You know, the storm will pass as you allow yourself to feel the pain or to go through the suffering. Have you got inspiration, or have you got perhaps ambitions to do this level of work through your business? Because when we look at Brian Keane, we still see a lot of the Brian Keane fitness, the fitness aspect of you. Is this something you'd like to bring in as part of your work, or is it something that's simply personal to you? Or yeah, where are you at with that? Is it going to remain fitness?
The answer is I don't know. One of the habits I wrote about in the new book was making sure that you're jumping out of bed every morning. And for me, that came off the back, particularly of a career. When I worked as a teacher, I hated working as a teacher. I was a primary school teacher for 4 years, and it wasn't for me. It was very misaligned. And I knew every Friday it was weekend. I knew every Sunday I was going back to work on Monday. When I set up a fitness business, and now I've got the fitness business and the business consulting, so I operate both. I don't necessarily know what day it is, because there's no day I dread. And part of that is following my own curiosity and how I can help and serve people. And we spoke, I don't think this was before we went on here, because we were talking to Dan as well. I was last year studying with my shamans who did my ayahuasca. So very long story short, off the back of the breakup a few years ago, I remember there was kind of a disconnection between me and my ex-girlfriend at the time. I thought we were working on things, coming back together. She wasn't so sure. And then something external happened and it just broke me into a million pieces. 1 a.m., bawling my fucking eyes out, crying on the bathroom floor, thinking I was never going to get back up again. All the shit it revealed for me, the shame, the lack of love. It wasn't the breakup. It's not the breakup that causes the pain. It's what it reflects and brings up in you. Beautiful gift to get now, and I'm eternally grateful for the experiences. But I remember texting the shamans. This was a Tuesday. They were doing a retreat on the Thursday, and I had been the previous year, and I did a podcast about it. And they sold out the rest of the retreats for the rest of the year off the back of the podcast. I didn't even mention them on the podcast. I just said, if you want to know the company I went with and the shamans I used, email me and my assistant will send it to you. This was in July. They sold out the rest of the year. So I emailed the message the shamans. I was like, I'm going through a bad time. Any chance I can come to the retreat on Thursday? And they're like, was that actually full? They were like, is this Brian from the podcast? I was like, yeah. They were like, we'll find a space. They were like, come over. So I ended up doing October, November, 3 ceremonies in October, 3 in November. And then the year later, I signed up to what was their shaman project. It was them training people to be a shaman. And I was like, I might do that. That sounds like possibly an area of curiosity for me. And I did 2 days of it. And it was a tobacco ceremonies, some firework, breathing, breath work, etc., and then an ayahuasca. And there was supposed to be 3 again. And after the first night, I said this to you before we went on air, the ayahuasca was like, what are you doing here? Like, you're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing in life. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing. I was like, okay. And I told him the next day, I was like, I'm good. I was like, I'm not going to finish out this. I'm good though. Thank you. And it gave me a bit more clarity that I can talk about what works for me and have conversations like this, and the hope that it will help and either serve or inspire those who need it. That's what gives me the direct fulfillment right now. And there's no way for it to not cross over into my work. But it doesn't cross over from a deep-rooted spirituality side. It's normally in the case of, I had one of my weight loss clients who was really struggling with weight loss. But it wasn't weight loss she was struggling with. She was struggling with her self-worth and struggling with her self-esteem. And we spent weeks, just every time she'd send on a food diary, I'm like, amazing. How are you feeling today? She's like, I feel horrible. I feel like I can't stick to anything. And it was just her self-esteem and her self-worth. And then we had to spend 4 or 5 weeks working on that. And then we were able to layer nutrition on top of it and training on top of it. So it ends up indirectly impacting my work. Not with everybody. Some are perfect in terms of, like, I say perfect relative, in terms of they don't need the deep emotional work. They're like, oh, I've been dieting for years. I actually don't know what's good and what's bad. And then you're just like, here's a sustainable nutritional plan. Here's a training program that gets you to move. They lose weight, they build muscle, they feel amazing. They're like, class, I'm good. So it's not everybody. So I don't think there's any way for what we do, and this is your work, this is your mission, this is your plan, it's part of your purpose and why you're here. Mine is a little bit more square peg into a square hole. Some people need the support and some don't. So it ends up coming into my work indirectly, but I don't think it'll ever become a primary focus.
Beautiful answer. Yeah. And a beautiful conversation, man.
Mate,
absolutely love this.
Mate, pleasure. As I said, like, what you're doing, these are conversations that are so important for men to potentially listen to, because it only takes one part to connect. Something you've said, something I've said, a combination of both to go, and that potentially it follow that thread. One of the things that I live my life by when it comes to my business is inspiration is perishable. Meaning that if I get an idea for something, chapter of a book, podcast, I put it straight into my phone. Inspiration is perishable when you're listening to a podcast, when you're trying to heal as well. If you're feeling inspired now, you do retreats all over. Maybe it's time for a retreat. Maybe it's time to start pulling this thread. And you don't need to know exactly what you need to do right now. All you know is, I felt that. I felt that sentence. I felt that line. That connected for some reason. Because if it didn't, the other conversations didn't land. The other sentences didn't land for a reason. So the reason that and it goes both ways. You get the negativity online when you've inadvertently activated or triggered a core wound in somebody, and they're like, fuck you, Gavin, fuck you, Brian, what are you saying? Like, because you've said something that's been very triggering for them. When people are listening to a podcast like this with this context, they're activations, not triggers. Something got activated in you and it landed for a reason. Get curious about that. Don't bring judgment to it. If shame came up, if guilt came up, as you mentioned, get curious about that feeling. Get curious about that emotion. And then ask yourself, I put this in Rewire Your Mindset. How do I win? Acronym, WIN. What's important now? How do I win? What's important now? What's the next step I need to do that could further help this healing? And maybe that's listening to more of the podcasts. Maybe that's binging some of your content on Instagram. Maybe that's signing up to a retreat. Maybe it's something completely different. But what do you need right now that's going to help you take this inspiration and allow you to get on that path of healing? Because it's hard. I've been doing this for nearly a decade now. It's not easy. And I'm not even going to lie, and you're not going to sit here and tell people it's easy, because it's fucking not. But it's worth it. A cliche in fitness, it's not easy, but it's worth it. Emotional healing is the same. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And I've lived a life being numb. I've lived a life disconnecting. And you can not feel for so long before it feels like the world is self-destructing around you. Or you can step in and have the courage, have the strength, whatever it is you need to do today, to be the buffalo in the storm, moving through the pain and anchor that pain as the path to freedom. every time I'm going through something struggle and I don't want to feel the pain, I remind myself, this is my path to freedom. I have to fucking feel this or I'm not going to get the freedom out the other side. Sometimes you just need a brain tattoo or an anchor when you're going through a difficult time. So I just wanted to wrap on that.
The truth will piss you off before it sets you free. And maybe as well, thank you for that, Brian. Maybe as well, you need to grab Brian's brand new, incredible book, Rewriting Your Story. Where can they find this? Where can they find you? Let us all know.
Oh, thanks so much, mate. Yeah, Rewriting Your Story is on Amazon. Probably the best place to get it. And then the Brian Keane podcast, Brian Keane Fitness on Instagram. The podcast is where I kind of go a little bit deeper on things. The Instagram's nice and fitness content. A little bit lighter for sure. I try and counterbalance it. Like people that follow my Instagram, they're going, oh yeah, you're a bit more lighthearted. And then they follow the podcast and go, what the fuck? They're like, that was a lot deeper than I thought it would be. So it's a nice little counterbalance, I think. So it just depends on what you're into.
Fair play, man. Brian, thank you so much again.
Absolute pleasure.
Until next time.
100%.